Justice Ministry Advocacy has had, in the last several years, a large class like this that is focused on some type of social justice issue. And we have dealt with race and capital punishment, and marriage equality, and immigration. And this year, the recommendation from the Social Justice Ministry was to talk about the Little Rock School District and the challenges of public education here in Little Rock. So I was asked to help to facilitate that. My name is Greg Adams. I'm a member here at Second Pres, and I was on the school board when the state was took over the school district. So the first week we talked about, I had a chance to present, and I talked a little bit about that takeover time and what happened that year and the aftermath of the takeover, and gave you some facts and also gave you my opinions, and hopefully those were clear which ones were facts and which ones were opinions. Then last week we were really privileged to hear from two other voices. We had Antoine Phillips, who's a graduate of McClellan High School and is a volunteer and a leader really in our local community, African American man, and he's a chair of the Public Education Foundation and with our stakeholders group, and he talked about his experiences both personally and in those roles. And we had a parent voice, and Patty Bates Abraham, who's one of our own here, talked about her experiences with our school district as a parent of 3 sons, one who's still in the district. And we have 2 more weeks. Next week, we'll have Baker Curris, who was a school board member and then was the superintendent for 1 year after the state takeover. And then we'll have, for our final week, we'll have Mike Ford, who is the present superintendent of the district. This week, we are pleased to have John Bacon. I'm going to tell you about John in just a minute. But first, let me make a couple comments about that. When we talked about doing this, we really wanted to live into the spirit that Steve talked about the first week, in that to have the church be a place of moral discourse, which means that it can be a place where we have various points of view. And we've done that when we've had the classes on race and immigration and marriage equality. And it's an important thing, I think, for us to do that, so that we can hear and know that there's not just one perspective and one way of seeing things. The first couple of weeks, and probably the next couple of weeks, you're going to hear, and you have heard, some concern and skepticism about the growth of charter schools in Little Rock. That's certainly, you heard some of that from me. But we also thought we needed to, if we're going to look at the whole context of the schools in Little Rock, we needed to have someone who could speak with the perspective of being a part of the charter school expansion and system and being an advocate for that. And John Bacon will be a very good person to bring that perspective. It's a temptation in politics, and in the big picture, we see that in the newspapers today, and nationwide and statewide level, and in the politics of local education. And it is a political thing. I don't say that in a cynical way, it's just part of the deal, that because all of us are concerned and all of us are affected by that, it's a political thing that affects our body politic. But in politics, there is a tendency to demonize those who you disagree with. And if you don't agree with me, then you don't care. And it's that kind of thing. I saw that on my experience in the school board. I don't think that's a healthy, my own opinion, I don't think it's a healthy perspective. I don't think it's a constructive perspective. And I think that that's one of the things that I have been pleased that although John's experience has been different than my experience, and back and forth we intersect on concerns and we see some things differently, but it's not one where it's a finger pointing and one cares and the other does not. I don't think we'll solve any problems with that. So, John Bacon is a longtime educator here in Little Rock, both in the Little Rock School District and at East End Charter Schools. He has served as an altogether for 23 years in education, 14 of those in the Little Rock School District as a teacher, both at Pulaski Heights Junior High back then, and McClellan High School and Farrah High School. He was assistant principal at Cloverdale and at Dunbar Middle School, and was a principal at Dunbar Middle School. I will tell you that that's when I first connected with John, because he was principal for our daughter, Laura, for 2 years while he was at Dunbar. There he went on to become the principal for Hall High School, and then went to become the director for East End, and then after a couple of years became the CEO of East End. him, and that's where he has been for a total of 9 years. His education is he received a bachelor's degree in public administration from the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville. He got his MBA at LSU. He got a master's in secondary education at ULR, and just this August he completed his doctorate in education administration there in ULR. You have been a very busy man, Mr. Baker. And congratulations for your doctorate. That's quite an accomplishment, particularly holding down a full-time job in what you're doing. We're very pleased to have John to share his experience and perspectives. After he does, then I will come back and we will facilitate some questions and answers. As before, we'll first give any students in the audience a chance to ask a question, and then we'll get to as many questions as we can after that. I should have made a comment in the weeks prior, and I will try to correct that today. When we get a chance for asking questions, so that we can get as many questions in as possible, please ask you to keep the question part most of what you say, and the comment part the least of what you say. And then we'll have a chance for most of our questions. So, John, welcome.
It really is a privilege for me to stand before you all today and talk about what clearly is a passion of mine. As Greg said, I've been working in public education in this community for 23 years. Probably most of it, my career was spent in the Little Rock School District. As Greg listed off there, I hadn't really thought about it, but we talk about Little Rock being in academic distress and taken over by the state, and there are 5 schools out of the whole school district that are on academic distress, and I actually worked at 4 of them at some point in my career. So believe me, I don't know if that says more about me or them, but I would say, please understand that I definitely know the struggle. I definitely know the plight that we're looking at when we talk about public education in this community, and certainly don't feel like I have found all of the answers or have the answers, and I appreciate all of you for being willing to invest some time and energy in coming to these sessions and thinking about how we as a community can raise the bar for all children. Because that's really what it's all about. So we have to raise the bar for all children in this community. And we're not doing that. We're not doing it in our traditional schools, and we're not doing it in our charter schools yet. And so we all have a lot of work to do. And so I'm glad that we're all in this together. And so I hope that you all can appreciate and respect where I'm coming from on that. This presentation I'm going to do, I've actually pulled together from 2 or 3 different presentations, just some pieces, because I wasn't sure where we needed to start. And so I've got some slides at the beginning that just kind of take you through general information about charter schools in the event that perhaps some of us aren't as informed about the difference between charter school and a traditional school. Then I'm going to walk you through a little bit about the school that I worked at, East End Public Charter School, and then try and process a little bit of it in my mind. And as Greg said, there are facts and then there are opinions. Some of this is fact, but a lot of it is my opinion, and a lot of it is me trying to make sense of some very large problems and issues that we're facing, and hoping that I can be part of that solution. I agree with Greg that this is not an either-or. This is not it's not a place for us to take political sides or to try and choose a side. The side that we're all on is the side of children and families in this community. And it's going to take traditional schools and charter schools and something else that we haven't even come up with yet to be able to make sure that we're doing that for all kids. And so I appreciate a respectful discussion later. I hope I can figure out how to do that. I think I can. All right. So as I said, I want to just kind of talk a little bit about charter schools in general for those that maybe don't understand the distinction. There actually are 2 types of charter schools that are possible in the state of Arkansas. We have what are called open enrollment public charter schools, which is what East End is, and then we have what are called conversion charter schools. I'll take you through a little bit of information about each. So open enrollment public charter schools, again, these are public schools. One of the questions 9 years later that I get every time, every year when we're taking applications, how much does it cost? These are tuition-free schools. They're funded by the same tax dollars that the traditional school districts are funded by. But we're not affiliated with the traditional school district. So, we are not a part of the Little Rock School District or the North Little Rock School District or one of those school districts. we actually hold a charter or a contract directly with the Arkansas Department of Education, and we're accountable directly to them. The reason that charters were created, one of the main reasons, was to provide some flexibility. We talk in the public sector across the board, and certainly in public education, about the red tape, the bureaucracy, the things that tie our hands. So one of the reasons charters were really created were to provide some flexibility through what's called the waiver process from some of the onerous restrictions and rules that are applied to schools. But in exchange for that, we have a high level of accountability to the Arkansas Department of Education. We're open to anyone who is a resident of the state of Arkansas, so any charter, any open enrollment charter school, anywhere in the state, frankly, you can apply, and if you get accepted, you could attend. And students are admitted through a random anonymous lottery process. So there are no selection criteria, there are no tests that you take to get in, there's no weeding out process. All those people apply through the same portal. If there are seats available, the first applicant gets the seat. If you have more applicants than there are spaces available, you have to run what's called a random anonymous lottery process. And that's what we've done every year that we've been in existence. So that's just kind of a general picture of what an open enrollment public charter school is. The other type of charter school, and I'm only going to just hit this, but we're not really going to talk much about it, are what are called conversion charter schools. These, again, are public schools, also tuition-free, but the difference is these are schools that are actually affiliated with a traditional school district. And so I think in the Little Rock School District, I know at one point we had, I think Cloverdale was considered a Cloverdale Junior High Middle School was considered a conversion charter. We've got conversion charters in other districts. But basically what these are set up to do is to try and turn around a low-performing school. So a district says, we've got a school that's struggling, we need to do something different. So they would apply for this conversion status, which allows them some flexibility, same flexibility that an open enrollment charter school could apply for. But it also gives them a chance to kind of restart that school and see if they can come up with some new solutions. And then for these schools, since they are part of a traditional school district, the school district has its own process for selection. Some school districts just allow the students who are already attending to stay, and the school transforms around them. Some districts choose to say, we're going to convert this school, and they kind of have a whole new applicant pool to kind of start over with a lottery process the way that we do in our open enrollments. And so those are the two types of schools. What I'm really going to talk more about today is the open enrollment piece, because it definitely impacts our community. And when I say our community, I'm really not just talking about Little Rock, but all of Pulaski County and Central Arkansas. But, as I said, conversion charters are out there, but at this point, I'm not even sure that Cloverdale is a conversion charter anymore. I think they may have turned that back in. So I don't know that we have any conversion charters in Little Rock at this time. So then we kind of want to talk about why do charter schools exist. As I said, we're talking about flexibility, we're talking about high level accountability. In the conversion piece, we're talking about the opportunity to really transform a school. But I wanted to bring you just from the very beginning back to the Arkansas Charter School Act, which was passed in 1999. That was 17 years ago. A lot of people don't realize that. East End has been open for, this is our 9th year. And honestly, when I went to work there in 2008, I can tell you nobody around here had any idea what a charter school was. So the law had been on the books for almost a decade at that point. And even today, we still have a lot of people who don't know what exactly it means to be a charter school. So this is a long-standing law that a lot of people really didn't pay much attention to, but boy, we're talking about charter schools now, aren't we? So what the purposes behind this Charter School Act were: first, improve student learning, to increase learning opportunities for all students, but with a specific focus on trying to expand learning opportunities for those most disadvantaged students, or those students who have been identified as struggling. We're supposed to encourage the use of different and innovative teaching methods, create new professional opportunities for teachers, provide parents and students with expanded choices, and hold schools established under this chapter accountable. So basically, when I look at, when I came to work at East End, and I think about what I was told your mission is, what you're supposed supposed to be about as a charter school, and over the last few years, thinking about it, it really comes down to 5 things to me. The first one is accountability. Second one is transparency, choice, efficiency, and innovation. And really all of those are pulled from that charter school law, but also have been fleshed out over time in terms of if we're going to really make a difference in the lives of all students, and we're going to make sure that results are there, for not only from a student outcome perspective, but from a new approach perspective. We've got to make sure that we're paying attention to all of these key areas. As I said, we're accountable directly to the Arkansas Department of Education. At any time, the Arkansas Department of Education, the State Board of Education can call a charter school up, whether it's for academic or fiscal or any other type of issue, and put you on alert that there's an issue there. And so there's an immediate accountability system in play there. From a transparency perspective, and this is something that I would say as charters we probably don't do as well as we should, really to let people know how things work. We're much smaller organizations than a lot of larger traditional school districts, and so it should be a lot easier for us to show people what we're doing and how we're doing it. I would say if I were to list one of these that we need to work on more as charters, it would probably be the transparency piece, just to make sure that people are aware of how we're doing business and what that looks like. From a choice perspective, obviously, many of you I can see have probably lived in this community a long time. School choice has been, I'm 46, I've been here for 24 years, so I'm just saying. School choice, I've been here for 24 years. School choice has always been a part of the public education fabric of this community. From the time I've been here, we go back to the desegregation days in the late 80s. We've had these what we're called stipulation magnets. So we've had magnet schools throughout. We've had what we're called specialty schools. I've worked in specialty schools like Dunbar or Hall, where we had a specialty program you could apply to. We've had all sorts of transfer options within the school district, within the 3 school districts. Now, many of these were forced upon us as a community, but many of these were determined that we wanted to do that because we wanted to provide choice to our families. And frankly, in the last year or two, now that Little Rock has gotten out from under the DSEG case, we're not required to do those. But as a community, I'm proud to say that we continue to embrace school choice and options for all families because we know that not every school is where it needs to be. And so I think it's important that that choice can continue to be a theme in this community, and I'm proud to see the Little Rock School District and others continuing to make that an important theme. Efficiency, and I'll talk about that a little bit at the end. We spend a lot of money on public education in the state and in this community, a lot of money, and we should expect to get some results. And so we think that it's important as charters that we use every dollar that we're given to the best of our ability and show a result for it. Efficiency is probably one of the key things I think that charters should be able to show you can get this job done. We should continuously ask for more and more funding. And then the last one being innovation. This is one that we as charters like to put up as being an important thing for us, and it's one that traditional school districts like to throw back in our face and slap us down saying we're not doing enough of. As I said, I've been in this game for quite a while now in a number of environments, schools that have large populations of struggling students, schools that have large populations of successful and succeeding students. But there is not one answer for every child. There's not one educational approach that is going to be, this is it for every kid. We have to keep looking for new approaches. And that's what I love about being in a charter environment. That's what attracted me to it in the first place, was the belief that you should be looking for a new solution. That good enough is never good enough. You have to constantly be looking to move things forward. And so that's what I love about my environment, is we're looking for new things we can do. And I'm going to talk about a couple of those in a minute. But new educational, instructional things, new ways of looking at teaching and learning. And the bigger piece to that is, as we discover these things and as we test out these things and we determine if they have potential for positive benefit for students, we need to share those things, and they need to become the norm. That's my whole goal working in the charter environment is we're finding some solutions, we're finding some things that we're sharing those, and they become the norm. One of the things that I love about the discussion about education, and particularly when we discuss charters, you know, a lot of people will say, yeah, but you charter schools, you have all these waivers. You don't have to do all the things that traditional school districts have to do. Well, you could have said that up until about 2.5 years ago, because the Arkansas legislature, and I stood in front of the House Education Committee and pleaded for them to approve it, the Arkansas legislature approved a law that allows any public school district, traditional school district in the state of Arkansas, to apply for the same waivers the charter schools have. If they lose one student to a charter, they can have those same waivers. So to me, what that says is, if we don't need the law, so we're getting the waiver, and the Little Rock School District decided they wanted to get the waiver, why do we have the law in the first place? But that's just me. That's a whole other discussion. But a lot of people don't realize that when they say to me, and we went through this, you know, when we were going through some things back in the spring, people say, yeah, but you have these waivers, Little Rock School District doesn't. There is nothing stopping Little Rock School District from asking for every waiver that I have today. They haven't done it. Now, you can talk to Baker next week, they might go the following week and ask, I'm sure they have a reason why. But they haven't done that, and they could. So a lot of this, to me, is about we're trying to do things and put things out there, and then hope that we can work with traditional districts to say what parts of this could be beneficial to you and your kids. And so I think that's one of the ways that we can see some real change is, you know, as I said, there's nothing that we can do in our environment that the Little Rock School District and every other school district in the state can't also do. And we weren't able to say that for a while, but we can now. Just to give you kind of a rundown in terms of open enrollment charters, this was a list that was put together back in the summer. There may have been another one. I'm not sure if there's another one that's open this year, but it just kind of gives you a gauge on, you know, the different charter environments that there are. Some are K-12, like our situation. Lisa Academy out in West Little Rock had been middle and high school there now. K-12, they opened an elementary school this year. Many of the others are either focused on lower grades, high school. We even have one that's focused just on middle school grades out in Southwest Little Rock. So charter schools kind of choose what is the population that you hope to serve in terms of grade levels, in terms of location. You know, you decide who is it that you're trying to serve. And many of these are different. We've got a couple of high schools in town that their whole focus, these charter schools, their total focus is on preventing dropouts. And so the work that they're doing is very different than the charter school that's focused on elementary school, like the Rockbridge Montessori, which is trying to bring Montessori approach into a public environment, which is really interesting to me. My son actually went to Montessori school from 3 until 4th grade, and it was the best experience he's ever had. And so, you know, hopefully we'll see some things from that. But all charters are different, and they're totally based on, you know, a passion to serve kids at certain grades and in certain ways. This is just kind of a general list of different things, different approaches that charters in our community are using. And we've got college preparatory, STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, which is what you see that's in our name. STEAM is a new approach of taking STEM and adding the arts. So Montessori, dropout prevention. So there's just many different approaches, and that's the cool thing about the existence of these charters is none of us are doing the same thing. We're all trying something different. And hopefully, through these different experiments, we'll find some solutions for different types of kids, different environments, different age levels, and make a difference. And so that just kind of gives you a general overview of the charters in this area and what they're doing. Now I want to take you to just some specific information about my school, because a lot of people ask and they don't really know. And so just to give you some background, basically we were opened in July of 2008 as an elementary, middle, and high school. They were 3 separately chartered organizations, but working together, and we served students in grades K through 9. Had about 840 students that first year. We've added grades over time, we had an expansion, and so we reached our maximum capacity, which is 1,462 students, and that's where we've been for about the last 4 years, serving at full capacity, just under 1,500 students in grades K through 12. Graduated our first class in 2012, we had 84 students. Since that time, we've had additional classes. We now have a little more than 500, I think up to 564 exact graduates from our schools. And so we feel like we're starting to have a track record of showing what we can be about. In 2013, we did some restructuring, and we took those 3 charters, we put it into one. So we're now one streamlined organization working in unison and not having to kind of work through these different aspects. One question people ask me, and I hear people say all the time, you know, well, your school, your charter schools aren't diverse. Charter schools only serve white kids. Charter schools only serve certain kids. Just to give you a perspective on the diversity of students that we serve, 45% of our students are African American, 43% are white, very balanced. We do have Hispanic students, we have other groups of students that are much smaller percentages. I think our Hispanic population is somewhere around 6% now. But so we're a very diverse school. In fact, we are a majority minority school. So the next time someone tells you East End is that white school, that school for white kids downtown, that's not true. It's facts. Okay? Those are facts and opinions. These are facts. Okay? And the neat thing about this to me is, again, even in spite of that information, people will say to me, but yeah, you don't look like the Little Rock School District. Well, honestly, that's not the problem. The problem isn't that East End doesn't look like the Little Rock School District. The problem is Little Rock School District doesn't look like the City of Little Rock. Okay? And so if you look at this data, which gives you a rundown on our schools, we're 43% white, 45% black, 12% other. The City of Little Rock is 47% white, 42% black, and 11% other. So we are very close. We actually are a little more heavy on the minority side, but we are very close in terms of racial breakdown to the actual City of Little Rock. And so, you know, Little Rock School District is much more heavily African American. You know, I don't have that on here, much more heavily economically disadvantaged students. But that's not a reflection of this community. You have to keep in mind there are about 23 or 24,000 students in the Little Rock School District. There are about 5,000 in the open enrollment charter schools. And then there's 7 to 10, depending on who you ask, 7 to 10,000 who are attending private schools in this community. And we know who's attending the private schools. And so when I look at it, in a random anonymous lottery process, which we have no control over, we're susceptible to whoever we can recruit to apply into the school. The fact that our student population is very close to mirroring the population of the City of Little Rock tells me that a random anonymous lottery process works. And so I'm kind of tired of being told over and over again, yeah, but, because the yeah, but is that we reflect the City of Little Rock demographically. And that's not the problem. And so I feel it's important that people see data and understand that, you know, we're talking about many bigger issues because at present, the public schools in the City of Little Rock do not reflect the population of the City of Little Rock. And that's the bigger issue. Just to give you some more data here. As I said, I don't have our most recent class on here, but from the day we opened, one of our goals was that all of our students would have the opportunity to go to college. And you can see there from our acceptance rate, it's grown every year. We started with the first class, 90% of them were accepted to at least one college. It's grown to 98. This last year it was 98, 99%. Total scholarships accepted have grown dramatically each year, where you know, even in that 4-year window of time, the average scholarships per graduate, $34,000, which we feel like is a pretty strong statement to the opportunities that are being created for the students that leave our schools. And so, just some data there that I wanted to share with you. Again, as I said, one of the main things that charters are supposed to do is to reflect new approaches, innovative approaches. So I'll just kind of throw some things up here that you can see. Things that we do an extended day, we do an extended year, we do a grant program that we do on our own to encourage innovative project-based learning for our teachers. We do a performance award system for our teachers and administrators. One of the things that we've really tried to do in the last couple of years is find a couple of big things that we can do that can be really innovative, but also have the potential to spread beyond just our environment. Because as I said, we feel like the charters were doing some pretty innovative things, making the leap from seeing it in one charter school to seeing it as the norm has not occurred. And that's something that we have a task to make sure happens. But one of the things that I want to point out is down here at the bottom. We are in our 4th year now of what we call our STEM residency program. Every school in this area is struggling to find high-quality math and science teachers, particularly when you get to the middle and high school level, but even at elementary. We know it's difficult to find high-quality math and science teachers. So one of the things we decided to do was to create our own program. So it's kind of a grow your own training program. So rather than going through a traditional teacher certification program, because we have a waiver for certification, we set up this program, which is a year long, the same way that as a doctor, you've gotten your training and then you go and you're a resident in the hospital where you're learning on the job before you're actually turned loose to go and practice on your own. So we take people who have a degree or content knowledge in math, science, one of the STEM fields, passion to work with kids, but need to learn how to become a teacher. We put them through a full-time, we pay them a salary, we put them through a full-time, year-long process where at the end of the year, we feel like they're quality to be a math, qualified to be a math and science teacher and can bring something quality to a classroom. The cool thing about that is, because of the waiver process, a lot of people said, well, that's only for charter schools. Well, Little Rock School District could apply for that waiver, as I said. They haven't today. But we thought, okay, so how do we get around this idea that, again, people are going to say this is only for you and your kids? So we worked with the Department of Education, and there are a lot of what we call non-traditional pathways for people to become certified teachers. They've approved this program as a non-traditional pathway for people to achieve teacher credentialing or teacher licensure. So we hope to be able to work with some of the local school districts on either bringing people into our program or helping them create their own types of residency environments where we can train up a whole new core of math and science teachers. But again, at this point, because it's a licensure program and because of the waiver process, there's absolutely nothing that would stop this type of program and training from moving into a traditional school. So my hope is that we'll start to see some collaboration on that point. Another thing that I'm really proud of, as I said, we're trying to find 2 or 3 major themes that we can say are innovative that we can share. So we started a project called Noble Impact Program. We're in partnership with the Clinton School, with a local nonprofit that was founded about 3 or 4 years ago called Noble Impact. And basically this is a new curriculum program, a program of study that meshes or marries the idea of entrepreneurship with public service. And so we talk about this is where those 2 things meet. And so we created this program, which basically, some of the things these students have done, they participated in high school startup weekend. They created their own event, which is similar to a startup event. They call it Innovate to Educate, which is an annual event where they come up with ideas and solutions from a student perspective on how to improve public education. We set up internships. I think we've got 35 of our seniors this year working in different local businesses and nonprofits and internships. They mentor other students. We've actually had students start their own businesses through this program. And so to me, it's one of the coolest things I've seen in all my years working in public schools as a way to engage kids, to empower kids, to give them the opportunity to define what they want to do with their learning and to make it real and practical and worthwhile beyond just this theory of what we do in a classroom. So it's completely facilitated based on student input and student interest. And so, again, we've been working on this for 3 years. We're in our 4th year. We worked with the Arkansas Career Education Department, and we just received approval for this to be an approved program of study, which again means that now that we've piloted it, we've tested it, we think it's a great thing, any school in the state can now apply for this same program of study and offer this same experience to their students. So I'm hoping that this is a second way that we can say we want to impact from the teacher level through the STEM residency, but this would be a neat way that we feel like we can impact some pretty innovative things for students. And again, now that it's approved by ACE, any school in the state, any high school in the state can offer the same program, and we hope to see that happening here in the near future. Just another bit of information. So as I said, we serve 1,462 students. Back in the spring, you may have heard we're going through some expansion hearings and in the process of trying to open our schools to more students. And one of the reasons that we do that is because we have this huge waiting list of students. We started with a small waiting list, but within the first few years we were open, we were running these lists of 3,000 and 4,000 students a year who are applying to get into our schools, but we have nowhere to seats to offer them. We have done some things in the last couple of years talking about this expansion. That number has now grown where for about the last year and a half, we've been at well over 6,000 students on this waiting list. And so we feel like, a lot of people ask me, why are you expanding? Why are you doing this? Well, A, we feel like we've done a pretty good job and we've got something to offer. But B, we also feel like there's a lot of interest out there. And I think it's important that in a community that embraces school choice and options for families, that we provide them an option. And so that's one of the main reasons why we've pursued an expansion plan. And just to kind of give you a rundown on that, what we were approved for just as of March 31st is over about a 10-year window of time to grow our schools from the current 1,462 students that we serve to upwards of 38, a little over 3,800. First thing we'll be doing, we had a groundbreaking a couple of weeks ago, but we're relocating our high school to the UALR campus. Dr. Anderson is here. He's recently retired from UALR. We're so excited about the opportunity to provide a true college prep experience for high school students. And again, we know in the short run this will benefit our students by being on this college campus, having access to college courses and that experience. But long term, we hope to work with UALR and have UALR as the kind of the pillar in the community that has great relationships with the traditional school districts to take what we find in working with them and make these opportunities available to students beyond the students we serve. We'll also, next year, be able to expand our schools that currently exist downtown. We're located at the corner of Fairview and Sienna. We have two-story buildings there, a lower elementary on one side of the street and a junior high on the other. And then the following year, we'll be opening 2 new schools on a piece of property that we purchased in what we're calling the East Village. You all are familiar on the east side of I-30 by the Clinton School of Public Service, the Clinton Library, Heifer International. So there's a piece of property there on Shaw Street that we've recently purchased that we'll be moving into not next year, but the following school year. This is something I wanted to put up for a couple of reasons. In the last few months, I've heard it over and over again. A statement was made, and so I feel like I'm kind of being defensive, but I want to take it in a different direction. A statement was made repeatedly that if you look at data, charters in general, and ESTEM specifically does no better for the kids, particularly disadvantaged kids that with special needs kids, African American students, those subpopulations. Stated repeatedly that we do no better than the local school districts. So I wanted to share this data, to disprove that. Okay, because if you look at this, and you can see I've pulled data for math and literacy for African American students, disadvantaged students. TAG is an acronym for Targeted Assistance Gap Group, which includes students who are economically disadvantaged, students with special needs, and students who are English learners, or English is not their primary language. And so, can we just, once and for all, with data straight from the Arkansas Department of Education, clear up the fact that ESTEM does in fact do better with these subpopulations than the Little Rock School District? I just have to say that once and for all, and I'm going to move on. But the other thing that I think is important about this, and this is when I try to bring it back to beyond just this concept of ESTEM Little Rock School District, if you look at this, and you're like me, and you look at the Little Rock School District numbers, and you compare those to the Blackstone County Special School District numbers, and frankly, North Little Rock School numbers, you scratch your head and you wonder, so why did the Little Rock School District get taken over for academic distress, and the other two didn't? Because there's really not a lot of daylight. And so, this is the last set of data that was used when the State Board of Education decided to take over the Little Rock School District in the spring of 2015. And so when I look at this, and I can go back a year, here's 2013, these were the Arkansas benchmark tests, which were the state mandated exams. You do kind of start to wonder, what are we doing? Why was it so critical that the Little Rock School District be taken over because of this horrible distress when I don't know that the data shows that? So the reason I bring this data up is twofold. One, to say, it is fact, it is from the Arkansas Department of Education, and it refutes the idea that for whatever reason people have convinced themselves that ESTEM shouldn't expand because we're not getting the job done. That's false. But it also brings up another argument to me, which is perhaps we need to dig deeper and figure out, maybe the Little Rock School District isn't doing as bad of a job as everybody wants to say. Maybe, this data could help us look at what do we need to do. Because the thing that I've seen, in this last year and a half since Little Rock School District was taken over, is really not much. When I said this, and when we sat as a charter school, and as someone who worked in the school district for 14 years, knows the people, has great respect for the hard work, the task that people have been given, and knowing what is important for our community to focus on kids. But you're really left scratching your head, because a year and a half later, I don't know that I've seen anything really done differently. And so I've said from the very beginning, if you feel the need, or don't listen to me, it's not, I wasn't involved in this, but if you feel the need to say, we're going to go to such a drastic step to take over the Little Rock School District, because it's in such horrible disarray, the next thing that needed to happen was something so dramatic and such drastic change that it said, this thing is so bad, we're blowing it up, and we're figuring it out, and we're doing something completely different. Well, I've watched for a year and a half, and I haven't seen anything happen. And so it really bothers me, this is me on my, now we're in the opinion area, right? I said back in a minute, now we're in the opinion. But it really bothers me that we're not really, I'm not sure we're advocating for the right things. What I see is a lot of people, trying to drive a wedge between the traditional school district and the charter schools, particularly East Evangelista, which I think some people think is a name because it was used so often in the spring. And as someone who has literally had their own hashtag created, Max Brantley created a hashtag that was hashtag shame on John Bacon, because we were pursuing this expansion. So, I think that when I look at it, I'm not sure that the right fight is between the traditional school district and charters. I think that it is all of us looking at it community-wide and saying, what are we doing for our kids? What are we demanding from the state, the nation, whoever, and from ourselves for our kids? And how do we take all of these pieces, which we have for 25 or 30 years said, we want choices, we want options for our kids. How do we take that and say, let's make sure that there are plenty of quality options and that every child in this community has access to at least one quality option? Because I look around this room, and we all know that everybody in this room, whether you have kids in school or grandkids, or relatives or friends, we all know that we can find an option. Because if there's not a good public option, we're going to go find a private option. Or if the school that we live in the neighborhood or the town we live in, we'll move because we have economic needs. There are a lot of people in this community that don't have those opportunities. They don't have the same ability to make those decisions that everybody in this room does. And so, to me, we have to come back to how does the traditional school district serve as many kids as effectively as possible? How does the charter environment do it? Do we need more conversion charters? Do we need more restructuring? Do we need more options that are, do we need to blow the whole thing up and start over? That's the discussion we should be having. But instead, I've sat for 6 months and had to be engaged in a back and forth and back and forth. So I apologize for throwing that data up there for no other reason than to say I'm so tired of statements being made that are not factual. I'm done with that now, I'm going on. Here's just from a financial efficiency perspective, as I said earlier, we spend a lot of money on public education in this community. We spend a lot of money on public education in this community. And unfortunately, my friends who work in public education were the first ones to say, we need more money. We don't have enough money. We need more money. Give us more money. I mean, in this economy and in this day and age, I think that argument falls flatter than it ever has. And people look at things and say, we're spending a ton of money. If we're already spending a ton of money, what are you doing? Show me the results of the investment that we're making. So I think we've got to have a different conversation, not about how much money are we getting, but how are we using that money, and are we being efficient, and are we being effective, and is it making a difference? So when I kind of try to break this all back down for myself, and again, this is just me talking, this is not a ESTEM perspective. So what does it all mean? First thing, as I said, I think we're spending more money than ever on public education in this community. As you can see, year after year, we continue to increase the investment. But our most disadvantaged students are still struggling. And I can say, as I showed you in those numbers for those 2 years, that applies to the traditional school districts, but it applies to charter schools as well. No one has the magic bullet for how to get economically disadvantaged students or students with special needs over that bar. We're all still working and fighting to figure it out. But in spite of this great investment, we're still not getting there for our most disadvantaged students. And sadly, when I first started working in Little Rock School District, in my first 14 years in Little Rock, I started, when I had a child, everybody was in the two camps, public school, private school. You had your kids in public school, you hang with public school people, your kids in private school, you hang with private school people, and we started to fragment as adults. I'm not adults now. But what's happened in the last probably year and a half, is we're now in three camps. So now we have not only got our public-private divide, but we've divided the public arena, those advocates of public education, into the traditionals and the charters. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous for this community, and it's dangerous for our future if we continue to divide ourselves into these camps. Because I'm telling you, I have been on the receiving end, as I shared with you, many times over of personal attacks because of the work that we're doing. And I don't really understand that, because we all should be in this for the improvement of our community. We all should be in public education. Now I'm talking public education people. We all should be in it for every kid and for every family. And if we divide ourselves up into this split between traditional and charter, all we're doing is making it that much more difficult for families to find the support they need, to get the information they need to be able to make quality choices. And as I said earlier, again, my soapbox, I scratch my head. So in 2015, the state of Arkansas removed local control. I think we're on our third superintendent. Is that grade 3, I think, in about a year and a half. But what true change have we seen? I mean, I shake my head because people said when it first happened, all right, you did it, what's your plan? I want a plan. What is the plan? Well, there is no plan, is the plan. Right? We're here a year and a half later, and there's still no plan that I can see from where I sit. And so, again, I think that the idea that we have to stand up for Little Rock, great idea. We have to pick ourselves up out of the bootstraps and say, what are we going to do as a community to provide quality public education for all kids in this community? Absolutely the right agenda. For you to say that that means that you got to pick or choose, it's either you support Little Rock School District or you support charter schools, not the right answer. I think that is so detrimental to this community. I think it's going to take all of us. And so finally, just some thoughts here of my own. So what do we do now? Definitely, we got to get out of this political fight. Arkansas is such a unique place when it comes to the charter school concept. I look around the nation, the biggest advocates for charter schools in cities around this country are minority families. Parents, economically disadvantaged families. I mean, they're the ones demanding charters. And then they go and they vote for Democrats at the ballot box. In Arkansas, for whatever reason, charter schools are seen as this far-right agenda that take over, public education and all this. That's not the experience I've had, and that's not what I see. We've got to get beyond this concept of sure, the politics play into it, but we got to get out of this personal fight to win something. Because whoever wins a fight between traditional schools and charter schools, someone will win that fight because they always do, but families are going to lose if that's what we're doing. That's where we're spending our energy. We got to focus on what's best for all students in the community, not just our own. It is so easy at a time like this for people to say, I'm going to take care of my own. I'm going to make sure that my kid is in the best environment, and the hell with everybody else. And I've seen that too, and I think that is completely the wrong approach at this point. We've got to look at what's best for all kids. You have to demand that we come up with innovative approaches. This idea that charters are supposed to be innovative, you should demand that we're being innovative. And that we're telling you, what are we doing? What are we finding that's different? How do we know it's working? And what are you doing to make sure that that becomes part of the norm? But you know what? Innovation is not limited to charter schools. We should demand that of our traditional schools. If they're finding things that are working, they should be sharing that with their colleagues and with others. And they should be letting everyone know, here's what we're going to do in order to make a difference. We have to encourage collaboration. You know, we talk about it all the time, and I'll just say this, we are all adults in this room. There is no way that when two parties are involved, that one side can collaborate if the other one doesn't. And that goes for charter people, and that goes for traditional school districts. It takes two adults to collaborate. That's all I'm going to say about that. And I'm taking myself and my colleagues to task as much as I am anybody else. Don't think that I'm trying to imply anything in that. It's a two-way street. It requires both sides. We've got to pursue flexibility for the traditional environments. As I told you, there are waivers available. There are ways that the traditional school district, a Little Rock School District, can do every single thing that charter schools are doing through this waiver process, if they're willing to pursue it. That's a decision that I think as a community has to be decided. Is that the correct approach? But we're not even having that conversation in this community. Every month at the State Board of Education, 2 or 3 or 4 different traditional school districts around the state are showing up and demanding waivers and flexibility that match what charter schools are getting, and they're being approved. So we'll have to see, but I think that's a discussion that should be had that I haven't heard anything about in this community. And then the last thing I'll say is we just have to stop looking for someone to blame. There's so much anger and so much distrust and so much resentment in this community about the way that the Little Rock School District was taken over, about the timing in life is everything. We have been working on an expansion plan for about 2.5 years. Dr. Anderson can tell you, I've been talking for a while. People think that, Little Rock got taken over and East End, at least these starters, came up with this expansion plan. No, we were planning the expansion long before we heard about the takeover. It takes time. But I think people just have to quit looking for blame, and we've got to come together as a community and say, what are the real solutions that can make a difference?
Thank you, John, very much. I'm glad you brought up the issue of public school waivers, because that is a fairly new thing, and that may be a question or something that may be addressed by our speakers in the next 2 weeks. Before we get a chance for just 1 or 2 questions, I want to make just a couple comments. One is the slides that I used 2 weeks ago are now on the Second Pres website, and John has given us permission to put his slides also there, and any other slides we get from the future speakers, we'll put there with the idea of getting this information out there, and a lot of information put out there. People may want a chance to look over them and try to digest that. The other thing I want to mention that probably would have been good to mention even earlier is that in this room and in this church, we have people in all 3 of those camps that John talked about. We have people whose children are in private school, in charter school, in traditional schools, children who have been in all 3 probably of those schools. We have people who work in private schools, in charter schools, and in public schools. And so in some sense, we have a lot of wisdom in this room and in this church from people who see things from a lot of different perspectives. So, with the time for questions first, I want to go to our students. If we have any student questions. Kate.
So, the state mandated report cards. If East End is so much better than public school, how come the middle school for East End scored lower on the state mandated report cards than for LSU schools?
Sort of on this week, what they are talking about.
Let me ask that question for the whole group. So the question is there's a state mandated report card, it's a system that put out where every school is giving grades, and Katie's question is suggesting that East End scored lower than some of the Little Rock public schools on that system, and wondering why that is.
Yes, if they're scoring so much higher, but it's just the middle school.
Those are the middle schools. Okay.
You'll have to share that data with me because I haven't seen that.
Okay.
That's not what I was thinking.
Okay. Thank you. Let's go here and we'll go here.
Is there a year-round mandatory summer school
So the question is there a year-round or mandatory summer school for students at East End who are behind?
So the way our schedule works, the students only get about a 5 to 6 week summer break. And so we don't do a traditional summer school because what we found is, our students are getting more instructional time through an extended day and the extended year, but also the shorter summer. When we do an assessment at the beginning and the end of the year, and we chart to see, what kind of summer learning loss is there. When we compare it to national norms, it's tremendously smaller. So we don't really feel like bringing our students in for the only summer break that they get to do some sort of remediation. We do it throughout the year. We do it through that extended day. But we also are seeing that having the extended year, which I think it's hard on adults, but it's incredible for the kids. Because national norms show a large drop-off from what kids know when they leave in the spring, when they come back in August. Since our kids come back in mid-July, that drop-off is not there.
So John, can you just very briefly say, what is that extended year? When does it start? When does it
So our
end?
school year starts in mid-July, and then we usually get out 1st of June, kind of like everybody else. So our kids go about 3 weeks longer of instructional time, actual instructional days, and our instructional days about an hour longer.
Okay, thank you. Betty?
My concern is that you don't provide transportation, and so that's a huge cost for the school district. So your figure, when you show the cost, doesn't include transportation. So that eliminates a lot of people, parents and moms that can bring kids to school, et cetera.
Yeah, well, we do provide transportation. We pay for a city bus pass for any student that wants to use one. We have about 150 to 200 of our families that do it. I'll be honest with you, I worked in Little Rock School District for 14 years, as we said. I would put my child on a city bus any day before I put him on those yellow school buses because I know what happens on them. So we do provide transportation, and as I said, not nearly as many people might take advantage of it, but it definitely makes it possible. That's why we've chosen our locations. We're downtown, about 2 blocks from the main bus depot. UALR well-certified transportation. When we selected the East Village location, we did that specifically because we knew it would be well-served. We worked with Rock Region Metro to make sure that if we need to add routes or stops, that they work with us on that. So I think it's important to know the facts. I mean, we do provide transportation. No, it's not a big yellow school bus, but we definitely provide transportation.
But in doing that, you don't reach necessarily the low-income students.
Yes, we do.
I beg the question, and I'm afraid that we are resegregating our Little Rock School District, and that's my concern. We fought that desegregation for how many years, and we thought we were there, and now we're going back, and my concern is the charter schools are going to do the same thing.
So just to summarize before we end, so Betty's comment was a concern for the lowest economic students who may not be reached by the transportation that's provided by East End, and John feeling like that the resources are there to reach them if needed. We have to stop.
I just have to respond to that. Because if you look not only at racial demographics, but economic demographics and all of the different demographics, Eastham more closely reflects the city of Little Rock population than any other school around here. And so to say that we're resegregating schools is not accurate. As a community,
Particularly, but also,
well, many of these charter schools only serve for minority students. And so, I think it's a broad brush that's really not helpful.
There's so much more we could do and say, but we are out of time. Thank you, John, for coming. And thank you all.